Hello, Merry Christmas. Nice to see you again. So I have not been uploading videos for a while. I think it's getting a bit boring on the technical videos about framework. So from today onwards, we will be talking more on the C2M functionalities. We'll go through topic by topic, and probably start with the most important one, customer information. Of course, we will continue on the framework, but that's probably will be coming together with the C2M topics, and hope you like it. Um, at last, say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year for 2025. See you. Hello, nice to meet you again. So we are going to talk about the first C2M topic on customer information. We will go through four topics. We'll review the V model, which we have talked through during the framework sessions. But that's the really important structure of the data model, the core of the data model in C2M. And then we look at the customer roles, customer scenarios, and also the entity model behind it. So the first part is review V model. Okay, so this picture, probably you have seen that before. It's linking up from customer, which is a person object, and business account, which is normally dealing with the bills, payments, and service agreement, um, and linking up to the service point and the premise. So this is the very famous V model we have seen before, and today we will be focusing mainly on the customer information part, which in C2M term, it is the person plus the account. So a person exists for every individual and business that the utility has contact with. So let's not just restrict customer as the person. The person could be other roles, and very often you will hear other roles like broker, third party intermediate, TPI, or managing agent, or any other related parties, for example, landlord. So these can all be person in C2M. And the account is actually a collection of financial agreements, financial transactions. So that is basically collecting financial transactions and state what is the balance on the account. So in C2M account term, it's pretty much a billing account. It doesn't. It does get used by the utility companies for customer information as well. They do store customer information on the account, and they do store site information on the account as well in some cases for the field activities. But majority of the billing account of the C2M account is for billing. Um, each billing account can refer to one or more person, and one of them must be main account, a main customer. So we will see that a bit later. Now, second part is the customer roles. So we need to consider a few questions. Okay, so if you start a project using C2M, you need to ask at least these three questions. So first, who is the customer? Second, what can a customer do? And third, how to determine which role the customer is. And for me, if I'm looking at the first question, who is customer? It can be a business, it can be an individual, because the application can be used for B2C, residential, or SME, like a corner shop, or large industry customers, for example, a factory or a chain of business, for example, like a supermarket chain. And also, it can be a broker, it can be a property manager, and it could be a landlord uh, for this property. Now, second question, what can a customer do? Now, this actually builds the relationship between these customers. Okay, so who actually receives and pays the bill? Who signs the contract when the contract is agreed? Who will submit meter reads? And who will raise the case to support? Or in another word, who will the support contacts if there is a case being raised? And also, who is financially responsible when it comes to the arrear collection functionalities? And then the last question I would ask is how to determine which role the customer is. Now, the customer, they can be assigned with multiple roles. So let's say a customer could be a tenant on one side, or they can be a landlord on another side for the same customer. So in C2M, we have a customer hierarchy, which you can set up. But how do you set up the customer hierarchy? It's all based on the question we're asking here. Now, the third part I would talk about is the customer scenarios. Let's look at different scenarios. Okay, so let's say the first one is typical INC electricity customer. So we start with person, which could be a large factory, and account is billing account, and then have three service agreements: energy SA, distribution charge SA, and overpayment SA. Now, energy charge SA is based on the consumption on the service point. So it will be linked to a service point where service point is under a location which is a premise in the system. In this way, the payment can be allocated to the charges, to the billable charges on the energy SA and distribution charge SA, and if there's additional payment, for example, if this is paid via fixed monthly direct debits, when it comes to credits, they can be added onto the overpayments SA. Let's look at a second case, which is a residential water customer. Okay, so for water, the way when you look at your bill, I'm not quite sure for every country it's the same, but at least in UK, when you look at your water bill, you will find you have to pay for the water charge and also wastewater charge. Now, both of them are based on the consumption on the same service point. So normally there is just the 1 meter measuring the water, and that will be the volume, or that will be the volume to derive the wastewater volume. So in this case, we have a account with two SA, but both of them are linked to the same service point, which means looking at the same meter. Now, another one is more complex. This is more for residential customers. So for residential, you might have dual fuel at home. So you have electricity and gas both supplied by the same energy supplier. In that case, you have electricity and gas SA, and each of them is linked to a different service point because the meter and the gas they have separate meters, and but both of them is linked to the same premise, same location. Right, so let's have a look at more technical part of customer information, which I have built. I have tried to extend on top of what we already see in part one. So over here we have person, account, service agreement, service point, and premise. These are the main entities we have seen. But for each of the entity, you can see what information can be held. So let's say for person, you can have a person. So every single white box around this blue box is a child table. So that means it's magnitude 1 to the parent entity. So a person could have many names, and the person can have many contacts, many phones, many characteristics, many identity for to identify the person. So when we talk about person, let's not just think about its actual person, but that if in the case of the INC or B2C, B2B words, business to business, a person actually represents a business. So a business could have different names. For example, you have a register name or you have a trading name, etc. Okay, so and then when we look at account, we will have accounts storing credit check history, account alerts, accounts bill message, auto pay details, and characteristics. You notice probably the characteristic is common for every single entity in the system because that is just a unique feature in the system where we can store information for the entity on a child table, and that's easy to join. And as long as it's not sitting in a club, it's easy to query as well for a report. So account and person is linked by a link table, person account table. Account must have one main person, main customer, and but they can have other person linked to it. For example, the main person is the one paying for the bill, but you also have people who should receive a copy of bill, or who is financially responsible, or who is the broker for the business. Okay, and then moving on to service agreement so service agreement is directly linked to account. You must have the account first before you can create service agreement under the account. Service agreement, we have a lot of features on service agreement. So for example, the contract term, contract quantity, and contract options. So these three are very closely used by well, they're closely linked, but they're used by normally by the customer by specifying the prices and how the prices get calculated onto the with consumption is based on this SA rate schedule. So the rate actually calculates the prices. We'll talk through that in further details. Then you have service agreement characteristics and the TOU maps. Not all the chart table has been included on this diagram, but I'm trying to illustrate the main tables, which I think they are important. And then between the service agreement and service point, there is a link table as well, SASP. Now this one could have a start date and end date because the service agreement for particular service point normally is based on a contract. So when a contract is signed, service agreement is created. We know what is the period and need to um, track the consumption on the service point and then produce a financial transaction. And then moving on to the service points, we have service point geolocation, where we normally store the service point identifier like MPAN in the UK for electricity and MPRN for gas. Service point characteristic items, which could be badged items, unbadged items. Normally, items is something which we need to store against the service point, but they don't necessarily have a consumption based on. For example, if you have a lamppost, then that is item that need to be captured for the asset management purpose. They have SP route and SP equipment and operational area. And each of the service point has to be created after the premise exists. Premise is the location, and premise is quite simple. It's just storing where the location is, and the characteristic on the premise could be capturing things like the condition of the location for any field service team to be aware of. Okay, so that's everything, and I hope you like it. We talked through quite high level for customer information this time. If you like to expand further or have any other questions, let me know. We can add more videos on this topic. Bye.